Okay, good afternoon and welcome to your own Wellness Week. Thank you for having us. We are 269 Life South Africa, Cape Town. By way of introduction, who am I? First and foremost, I would like to express to you that I am nobody special. I'm nothing but a teacher by day and an activist always. And my profession is a teacher, but please remember that I am nobody special and that the facts that I'm going to share with you today are freely available on the World Wide Web. We live in the information age. I'm merely going to summarize my findings over time. Right now I'm throwing out these numbers 269, but what is 269? First of all, 269 is an actual calf who was born on an actual dairy farm in actual Israel. And because he was a male calf, the dairy industry did not want him, because the dairy industry only wants females to milk, for milk, to sell to the public. So 269's execution day was scheduled, and just before he was to be killed, Sasha Bajur, a man in Israel, saved his life. Subsequently, 269, the calf, whose ear tag number was 269, branded 269, he has become a symbol of a worldwide movement. He has become to represent all animals that now suffer at the hand of man. Various activists belonging to this movement, 269, have actually had themselves publicly branded with the numbers 269. I myself have done it, been publicly branded in solidarity with the animals that are suffering because of what we human beings are doing to them. So 269, rescued, saved by Sasha Bajur, is actually now a fully grown 4-year-old beast of a bull. And he doesn't know it, but he is a symbol of a global movement. What do I mean, a global movement? Well, if you look at this map over here, you'll see a bunch of little red cow heads, and wherever you see a cow head, that is a place on the global map where you will find a faction of 269. So you get 269 France, 269 Israel, 269 South Africa, and if you look at the African continent on this map, you'll see that there's one lonely little cow head, and that's us. We are 269 Life South Africa, Cape Town. What I want to point out here is that the bull in this picture would have been dead today if it wasn't for the man standing next to him. So this is 269, the bull, and this is the bull who now is the symbol of 269. So contrary to popular belief, veganism is not this tiny, insignificant little movement. It is a global movement. And 269 is fighting in defense of all animals, currently and in future, who will and currently are suffering because of human beings. So before I get into the concept of changing your lifestyle and changing your diet, I first need to explain to you what veganism is all about. I can't ask you to buy into a concept that you don't even understand yet. So let's talk about what veganism actually is. Veganism is not to be confused with a plant-based diet. A distinction needs to be made between dietary veganism and ethical veganism. So your dietary vegans are the ones that refrain from the consumption of animal products. So they will not eat meat, no milk, no eggs, no cheese, no butter, no dairy, no honey, no fur, no leather, no gelatin. So no product that contains even the slightest fragment of an animal component will be included in the diet or the clothing of a dietary vegan. Now, ethical veganism, on the other hand, includes dietary veganism, but it goes beyond that. And the whole crux about ethical veganism is the fact that ethical veganism is about becoming conscious. It's about far more than just the decisions that I make about what I'm going to eat today, what clothes I'm going to wear today. Ethical veganism is the point where veganism starts infiltrating into absolutely every sphere of your life. So, for example, can I eat palm oil? Well, your dietary vegan will say yes. You can eat palm oil because it comes from a plant. There's no animal derivative, there's no piece of an animal inside of the palm, and therefore I can consume it. Your ethical vegan will take into account the greater perspective and go, okay, well, how did this palm oil get to me? What happened before this product got to my table? And if you go and do your research, you'll find out that rainforests are pillaged in order for palm to reach your plate. In the process, orangutans are burnt alive, tigers are massacred, indigenous people are forcibly removed from their homes to clear rainforest land so that they can completely pillage that land and then start planting the palm. So your ethical vegan will not be able to turn a blind eye to that level of suffering, even though I won't be physically putting an animal into my mouth and digesting animal parts. I'm still complicit in the suffering of numerous people and animals in the world if I partake in the consumption of palm. Your ethical vegan will consider things like, okay, now, if I'm vegan, what about my pet dog? So our two rescue dogs are both vegan, and they're doing very well on their vegan diet. So, you know, ethical veganism goes as far as what do I feed my pet, not just myself. What products do I buy? If I want to wash my hair with shampoo, can I just pick any random shampoo? No. I need to consider, has this shampoo that I'm about to buy, has this shampoo been tested on animals? And if it has, I certainly can't buy it. And is it difficult for me to make the alternative choice to pick up this shampoo that hasn't been tested on animals rather than this one? No. To avoid this at the end of the session in Q&A, when someone is bound to ask me, oh yeah, but you also drive a car and you also, you know, put out fuel emissions into the atmosphere. Yes, you're 100% correct, but please remember that the point of ethical veganism is doing everything in your power to do the least amount of harm that you possibly can in every given situation. And unfortunately, in order for me to get to this talk, I needed to use my car. That's a need, it's not a want. It's not something that I just want for the sake of, oh, I want it. It's something that I required. Am I going to be able to survive with absolutely no money? Can I afford not to work? No. Do I need to drive my car to get me to work? Yes. So for the sake of survival, I need my car, and I admit that, all right? So that unfortunately is not something that I can really leave out of my life. I'd love to. I'd love to be able to fly to work on my own kinetic energy, but I'm incapable of doing that. On the other hand, when you consider things like palm oil, can I leave palm out of my diet? Yes, I just stop eating it, and it is that simple. So this is what we're trying to say, is that where possible, you need to reduce the amount of harm that you cause to the planet and every other person or animal or body that inhabits this earth. It's about making a shift from a selfish lifestyle to a selfless lifestyle. Ethical veganism is about waking up and realizing that, you know what, I don't live in isolation, and everything and everyone out there is affected in some way, big or small, by my actions, by my words, by my behaviors. And therefore, every time I talk, every time I make a decision, every time I behave in any way, I need to consider all stakeholders. I've got to go about this from a utilitarian point of view. I've got to maximize the good for the greatest number possible. I've got to do the least amount of harm and do the greatest amount of good in all situations. Okay, so now that we understand what veganism is all about, let's just get out of the way the fact that human beings are actually herbivores. Because if I'm going to start prescribing a vegan diet to you, I'm going to say it's a good idea for you to get on a vegan diet. How can I do that if you're still living under the assumption that you're an omnivore, that your body is physiologically and biologically designed to consume animal products? So I first have to dispel that myth that you're an omnivore and prove to you that you are a herbivore before I can prescribe for you a vegan diet. Okay, now this can be done pretty simply. Please remember, cast your mind back to the beginning of this talk where I told you that I'm nobody special. All that I did is I went online and I did a bucket load of research. Luckily for me, I went vegetarian when I was very young. I was in standard 4 when I went vegetarian, and I've been vegan for about 11, 12 years. So I've had an awful long time to research this kind of thing. All of this information is available to you. As much as I could go and research and Google it online, so can you. Alright, so this is just one of the many tables and many comparative studies that you'll be able to find if you do a simple Google search, where you'll see a comparison between carnivorous creatures, omnivorous creatures, herbivorous creatures, and then human beings. And quite simply, all we're doing is we're listing a number of biological and physiological facts about those categories of beings, and then we're taking the human being and trying to figure out in which of these categories does the human species fit best. Now obviously I don't have the time to go through the entire table with you, so I'm just going to highlight a few points. The first point I'd like to bring up is the simple jaw construction. All these carnivorous creatures, they have the capability for their jaws to move up and down. Why is this the case? Well, they are designed to consume flesh. They bite, they rip, and they throw their food to the back of their throat, and then they swallow it. Contrary to that mechanism, we've got the human jaw, which moves from side to side. If you can move your jaw from side to side, you're not a carnivore. And you will find that in your omnivorous creatures, there's very little side-to-side action. With us, that's the majority of our biting, okay? It's a side-to-side motion. So you're basically chewing the cud. You are very similar to a cow in the way that you chew your food. Now let's talk about the enzymes in your mouth. All herbivores have carbohydrate digestive enzymes in their mouths. No carnivores and no omnivores have carbohydrate digestive enzymes in their mouths. You, as a human being, have carbohydrate digestive enzymes in your mouth. So isn't it quite obvious then that you are a herbivore? Okay, then let's talk about your intestinal tract. In the case of a carnivorous creature, you will find that the intestinal tract, the digestive tract, is very short. And the reason is quite simply that if a carnivorous creature is going to consume decaying flesh, that creature needs to dispel, get rid of that decaying flesh from its body as quickly as possible. Otherwise, that toxic substance is going to toxicify the body, and we can't have that. So the body structure of a carnivore is designed to push out decaying flesh as quickly as possible. However, in the case of the herbivorous creatures, herbivores are designed to slowly digest complex carbohydrates. It's a slow process, and we slowly absorb all the nutrients that we need from our carbohydrates. Look at how long the intestinal tract is of a human being. You know, simple biology from school will tell you, you've got a colon that runs like this. It's crammed into your abdominal cavity. It is very, very long. So the problem is now when you're consuming flesh, you are forcing decaying flesh to take a really long time to make its way through your body. It was never supposed to be there in the first place. You've got carbohydrate digestive enzymes in your mouth. You've got a long intestinal tract that is there to digest slowly complex carbohydrates. So you're effectively going against your own biology every time you consume the flesh of a once living sentient being. Okay, now let's just talk about instinct for a second here, okay? Because not only physiologically what you can see in your body is 100% herbivorous, but your instinct is also 100% herbivorous. How do I know this? Well, let's do a simple analogy, right? If I think of a little rabbit jumping across a meadow, I don't watch this rabbit jumping across a meadow and start salivating. I don't feel the need to run after this rabbit and pounce on it and rip it apart so that I can consume its flesh. I do not desire to consume it. Instead, I stand at a distance and I watch this little rabbit in the meadow and I say, "Oh, cute." In contrast, a lion that sees a buck running across the meadow starts salivating. Instinct kicks in. Lion runs after buck, chases it down and rips it apart. Teeth, rips it apart, okay? So it's very clear then that we don't have that carnivorous instinct. So again, we're not only going against our physiology, we're also going against our own instincts the moment we're consuming animal products. However, if you're walking in a field and you see a beautiful fruit growing from a tree, or you see a turnip growing from the earth, you do start salivating. And the instinct is to pick that fruit or that vegetable and eat it. So there again, it's very clear that instinctively you are also a vegan. Please don't ask me what about my canines, because many herbivorous creatures have very large teeth, like the hippopotamus, like the gorilla, and different animals have different kinds of teeth for different reasons. So for example, the hippo uses its teeth for defense. You might use your teeth in order to break through really hard fruits like apples. Alright, so other herbivores also have large teeth, not just the human that has canines in its mouth. Extending from that, let's talk about the food chain. So we're sticking with what's natural, right? So we've been talking about naturally, biologically, your body. What is your body actually telling you? And continuing on the train of thought of what is natural, let's talk about the food chain. Because for vegans, it becomes very irritating in discussions when meat eaters are constantly saying to us, "Yeah, but we're at the top of the food chain. Human beings are the top of the food chain." Have you ever actually stopped to think about what it is that you're saying when you call yourself a being that sits at the top of the food chain? Well, let's do that now. What is the food chain actually? For the sake of this discussion, you've got to leave anything unnatural, anything from the human world has to be left aside for this discussion. So we can't take tools into account. We can't take weapons into account. We're talking about just the bare organism, just the lion, just the human, just the cow, just the bare organism on its own. So in nature, the food chain is literally just designating who eats whom. You've got the bacteria in the soil. From there, you get the grass. Then the buck comes along and eats the grass, and the lion eats the buck. Who eats the lion? Nobody. Nobody eats the lion. The lion eventually dies and then decomposes again. The bacteria help the lion to decompose, and then the earth regenerates with plant matter for the buck to eat, for the lion to eat. And so the cycle of life starts over again. Scientifically and historically, human beings have actually always been at the very bottom, very close to the bottom ranks of the food chain. We are by no means the top of the food chain. Then what is interesting is the fact that before weapons, before tools, humans actually were gatherers. In the beginning of humanity, humans were vegans to begin with. And it was only after the Ice Age that humans were forced into flesh consumption, because with the Ice Age, all vegetation died. There was no plant life available. So, for the sake of survival, merely to actually sustain the body, people turned to flesh consumption. Now, obviously, when plants started regenerating, we should have listened to our biology and gone back to plant consumption, but we didn't. And that's where our flaw comes in. That's our biggest fault, is the fact that we denied our own biology as a means of survival. But then when we didn't have to rely on animal products anymore to survive, we kind of just carried on doing so anyway. Now, if we're going to let go of that notion that we're at the top of the food chain, is that now something to be ashamed of? And what you'll find is that it's actually really not. It's actually something to be proud of. What you'll find is, again, naturally speaking, in nature, it's actually your herbivorous creatures that are the most evolved. And evolution is actually the prize here, right? We like the idea that we are so evolved. Now, what does evolution mean? Does that mean that my body, my physicality is evolved? Or are we talking about higher order thinking and emotional compassion and things like that? Because I think evolution is about more than just, you know, how is my body designed to withstand certain environmental impacts. You can take elephants, for example. And elephants, being herbivorous creatures, are known for their compassion. They live in herds, and their herds are very close-knit. If one of the herd dies, they actually hold a burial ceremony. They hold a funeral for their dead. They look after their young. They're pregnant for 22 months. They have a whole family dynamic, a whole cycle, and a hierarchy, a ranking system. These are very complex social systems. So intellectually, emotionally, it would appear that your herbivorous creatures are actually more evolved than your carnivorous creatures that just run, hunt, kill, die, don't think twice. Okay, now let's just think about this logically for a second, right? If you look over here, this is the basic structure of the food chain, all right? So you've got the bacteria. The bacteria enable the plants to grow. The plants are then consumed by these guys. These guys are consumed by these guys. Nobody eats these guys. These guys die and are decomposed again by the bacteria, and then we start at the beginning again. Now, if we really were at the top of the food chain, that would mean that we'd have to eat these guys. Okay, because currently what we're saying is that this is the top of the food chain, right? Now, these guys are at the top of the food chain because they eat these guys. And there's nobody above them. Nobody eats these guys. That's why they're at the top of the food chain. So for us to be at the top of the food chain, this is the group of creatures that we would have to eat. But we don't eat those guys. We eat these guys. And these guys over here, your lions and your tigers and your bears, they'd eat us if they were given a fair chance. So therefore it's quite obvious that we're actually more like these guys. Surely. Okay, so these guys would eat us. Remember what I said to you, to be at the top of the food chain, there's got to be nobody that would eat you. But these guys would eat us. And we don't eat them, so we're not above them. So quite obviously and quite logically then, we are by no means at the top of the food chain. So what I'm saying is that we've forgotten our place in this natural order of things. And it is crucial to the survival of all living things that we remember it, and we had best do so very fast. Another argument that we get from the public, from meat consumers, is that meat is the very thing that made us evolve. So why are you dissing meat if meat is the thing that made us evolve? Now, that's actually another myth. Let's dispel it very quickly. From Dartmouth University, there's a professor by the name of Nathaniel Dominy, and he explains the human ability to digest starch was likely a major factor in the development of our big brains. To digest starch. Compared to other primates, we have significantly more copies of the AMY1 gene, responsible for the salivary enzyme amylase. Remember, carbohydrate digestive enzymes in your mouth. The salivary enzyme amylase, which helps to break down starch. This made it possible for early humans to more efficiently digest starchy foods such as potatoes and corn. So over time, the improved access to carbohydrates, which fuel the brain — carbohydrates are humans' brain food — may have helped give us the cerebral boost needed to set us apart from other primates. Okay, so what's the difference? The chimp is really smart. Why are we smarter? It's because we have more AMY1 gene, which helps us to take more and get more value out of our carbohydrates. FYI, Albert Einstein abstained from meat eating too. Okay, so let's just summarize. Humans are herbivores. I think that becomes pretty clear by this point. This is nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually something to be proud of, because that's what made us evolve in the first place. By denying that we are herbivores, we lose our claim to fame, since we're clearly not that evolved and we can mercilessly massacre other sentient beings. We also create massive imbalances in nature, which are currently killing this planet and leading towards the 6th mass extinction on Earth, and we're killing ourselves. This is insanity. All this simply because human beings refuse to let go of this notion that we're omnivores. Simply because we are denying the fact that we are herbivores. We're killing ourselves, we're killing the planet, we're killing the animals, and furthermore, we're denying the very thing that makes us evolved in the first place. This is insanity. So now, you must have heard time and time again, you are what you eat. So what happens if I eat things that my body was actually not designed to consume? If you think about a car, okay, I have a 1600 Astra, an Opel. Now, I know that when I go to the gas station, I need to put green fuel into my car. It needs to be the green one, all right? Now, if I start putting diesel into my car, it's not going to go. All right, so I need to make sure that just like I put the right stuff into my car, I need to put the right stuff into my body. But what happens if I don't? What happens if I choose to deny that I'm a herbivore and start putting things into my body that don't belong there? All right, so let's first talk about meat. Meat is one of those things that is not supposed to go in your body. What happens when you put it there? Right, now if you just refer to Dr. Neil Barnard, who is an American doctor, author, clinical researcher, and founding president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, you'll find that he points out very clearly that animal products actually have within them carcinogens, and carcinogens are cancer-causing agents. In contrast, however, fruits and vegetables do not have such carcinogens. So fruits and vegetables don't cause cancer, meat and dairy does cause cancer. But even more than that is the fact that not only do fruits and vegetables not cause cancer, but they have antibodies and things inside them that actually fight against cancer. So on the one hand, you've got something that causes cancer, and on the other hand, you've got something that doesn't cause cancer, but actually helps you fight against it. Pick one. Okay, now there are numerous studies that you'll be able to find online. These are just some of those cited by Dr. Neil Barnard. So in one study, participants who ate the most red meat and processed meat increased their risk of dying by between 14 and 44%. In another study, men drinking more than a glass of whole milk per day had double the risk for fatal prostate cancer. In another study, women who consumed 1 or more servings of high-fat dairy products per day were 49% increased risk, at 49% increased risk for dying from breast cancer. If that's not enough, let's talk about the sugar inside of meat. Alright, the sugar is called NEU5GC. Now, this sugar is in all animal products, okay? It is not found in any plant product at all. Now, this particular sugar is completely foreign to the human body, but present in all animal products. So the moment you consume meat or milk, anything of the kind, any animal product whatsoever, you are taking in the sugar into your body, but your body does not recognize it. Your body sees it as a foreign entity that needs to be attacked and destroyed as quickly as possible. So your body therefore sends out antibodies to attack that site wherever this sugar is to be found. And the more your body reacts to the sugar, the more inflammation is caused. You actually start creating inflammation in your own body. And those sites of inflammation are actually what causes tumor growth. So when you're eating meat, you're eating a toxic sugar that is actually the very reason that you are causing your own tumors to form inside your own body. Sounds smart, doesn't it? Right, and then people love to hear studies, okay? People always want to know, oh yeah, but how do you know this? Give me proof, give me evidence. So I'm just going to cite a few from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Please note the dates on these studies as well, they are not outdated. Egg consumption increases risk for type 2 diabetes. Red and processed meat consumption endangers global health. Cancer risk from antibiotics in processed meats. Animal protein linked to increased risk for type 2 diabetes. Processed meat and fish increase risk for breast cancer. Red meat linked to earlier onset of puberty. In contrast, vegan diet best for type 2 diabetes. Vegetarian and vegan diets reduce the risk of heart disease and cancer. High fiber diet protects against breast cancer. High fiber diet, good for lungs. I was even surprised by that one. Green leafy vegetables reduce glaucoma risk. And fruit, ladies and gentlemen, prevents erectile dysfunction. So let's pause for a second on that last study. Let's dispel one more myth, the myth that real men eat meat. I would like to introduce you to a man named Patrick Bobomian. He is Germany's strongest man, and in this picture he is quoted to have said, "The world's strongest animals are plant eaters, gorillas, buffaloes, elephants, and me." I'd also like you to meet Mr. Richard Burgess, also known as Vegan Gains. He's a bodybuilder, and he takes on people that are obsessed with these meat-laden diets in order to be bodybuilders. He takes them on, he proves to them that the vegan way is the best way in order to train your body to health. Right, so is it really necessary for me to point out the obvious here? Is it? Okay, I will. Eating meat, eggs, and dairy puts the human body at risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, high blood pressure, and gout. A vegan diet does not only not put the human body at risk of these health conditions, but instead it protects the body against such ailments. So surely then it becomes obvious that the human body is vegan and that we're killing ourselves by going against our own biology. What about milk, you say? I've been harping on and on about meat, but surely milk is fine. Huh, okay. Are you still drinking cow's milk? Why? Humans are the only species to drink milk into adulthood, and the only species to drink the milk of another species. Every other species of animal on this planet will drink milk from its mother until it is weaned. From the moment an animal weans from its mother, it stops drinking milk for the rest of its life. You will never see a fully grown gorilla walking up to a giraffe asking for a drink of milk. It will never happen. Humans are the only sick, twisted species that think they require milk after weaning. You do not require it, and when you do consume it after weaning, you are actually causing your body harm. Your body was not designed to drink milk after weaning, and when you're drinking milk after weaning, you are hurting your own body. Do you really think that this little body needs the milk from a big beast like a cow? You saw 269 on the screen earlier on. I don't want to look like that. I never want to be that big and strong. So why am I drinking a product that comes from the body of an animal that looks like that? It makes zero sense. So you ask me, wow, you're weird. Why don't you drink milk? My question to you is, oh my gosh, don't you think you're weird? You're the only species on this planet that drinks milk after weaning. And milk from another species. Yuck. The idea is we must drink milk because we need to get our calcium, and if we don't get our calcium, then our bones are going to fall apart. Alright, now on this graph, what you'll see is this is the amount of calcium consumed on average per country listed over here. So what you'll notice is the more milk, the more calcium in milk consumed by these countries, the greater the chance of suffering from hip fractures. So it would appear that by consuming all these mass quantities of dairy, you're actually not saving your bones, you're harming your bones. You're actually making your bones more and more brittle. Okay, so again, you want scientific studies? Well, here we go. A high intake of calcium may not offer more protection from bone fractures. A plant-based diet may be associated with lower requirements for calcium intake for bone health. Okay, now why is it that certain people choose to avoid the consumption of cow's milk? And there are a number of different reasons. Firstly, it might be about what's in the milk. So a lot of people don't like the idea of consuming milk because it contains fat, cholesterol, allergenic proteins, lactose, sugar, and frequent traces of contamination. What is the contamination I'm talking about? Well, we're talking about the pus. If you hook up these machines to the udders of cows all the time, we're talking about pus, we're talking about blood, we're talking about feces. All of this stuff goes into the milk. And now you want to tell me, yes, but the milk gets pasteurized. Yes, but pasteurization is nothing but a sanitation process. So you're cleaning the milk, but you're not taking anything out of the milk. The pus is still in there. The blood and the feces is still in there. It's just clean. Okay, so people don't like the idea of consuming pus and blood and feces. So some people, for that reason, abstain from milk drinking. Another reason is that people don't feel well after consuming dairy products, and this is where we get this fancy term lactose intolerance. But FYI, all of us are lactose intolerant, but you'll know that a lot of people have various allergies, right? And some people have more severe reactions to such allergies, like I might be allergic to grass and you might be allergic to grass as well, but if I roll in the grass, I break out in spots. You roll in the grass and you just start itching. So everybody has a varying degree to which they show their allergy, but we all have that allergy because, as I pointed out to you, we're the only species that does consume milk after weaning. So none of us are supposed to be drinking it. We're all lactose intolerant. None of our bodies want it. And then also the fact that milk is linked to all sorts of serious conditions like type 1 diabetes. Right, so these are just some of the reasons that people might choose to avoid the consumption of milk. It turns out that when you're trying to keep your bones strong, it's actually not so much about how much calcium you're taking into your body. It's about how well adept you are at keeping the calcium that you already have. So the game here is to make sure that you don't lose calcium. Your bones consist of calcium. Your bones are a combination of calcium and phosphorus, calcium phosphate. So you've already got tons of calcium in your body, otherwise you wouldn't have any bones. The point is, though, that we don't want to get rid of any of that calcium. We've got it already, we just don't want to lose it. Now, it turns out that cultures that consume few or no dairy products generally have low rates of osteoporosis. So it seems that the less dairy you take into your body, the less your chance of getting osteoporosis. Now, the meat and dairy industries are telling us, drink more milk, get more calcium, your bones will be strong. But the contrary is actually the truth. The fact that the more milk you drink, the higher your chance of developing osteoporosis. So diets that are high in protein actually cause more calcium to be lost through the urine, and that's the problem. It doesn't matter how much calcium you're taking in, if you're peeing it all out, you're losing it. You're losing the calcium that you already have. And protein from animal products is much more likely to cause calcium loss than the protein from plant foods. So yes, there is protein in plant foods, but plants are designed for the human body. They work with us. They don't work against us. So animal protein is the protein that is responsible for the most amount of calcium loss. Plant protein, on the other hand, doesn't cause you to lose this vast amount of calcium. So you're not taking in meat, and while you're gaining the protein that you so greatly desire, you're actually causing yourself to lose the calcium that you really, really need. So this is probably one of the reasons that vegans tend to have stronger bones than meat eaters, and that is fact. Google is your friend. You don't have to believe me. The truth is out there. Okay, now we've got to talk about nutrient deficiencies, because if I'm advocating this vegan diet, and I've proven to you that you're a herbivore, so you now need to eat a vegan diet, but what about all these nutrient deficiencies that you've heard about? If I become vegan, then I'm going to fall apart for the following reasons. Where the hell am I going to get my protein from? Well, I'm going to answer these questions in short and very simply, and like I said, you're welcome to do further research yourself. And remember that this is the good protein. Broccoli, good protein, protein that does not cost you calcium. But if you're worried about taking in more calcium anyway, if you take in too much, it's okay, you'll just pee it out. But if you're wondering about where you're going to get calcium from, well, you can check out all these vegetables and the calorie counts. Okay, so 100 calories of milk will give you 245 milligrams of calcium, whereas 100 calories of spinach will give you 450 milligrams of calcium. So I don't think you really have to worry so much about that calcium of yours. Then let's talk about iron. Oh my heck, well if I stop eating meat, where am I going to get my iron from? Well, dairy provides absolutely no iron, so you don't have to worry about, losing iron because you're not drinking cow's milk anymore. And vegetables actually provide far more iron than any meat product. And on this list, you'll see at the top of the list is spinach. Spinach has 15.5 milligrams of iron per 100 calories. And then we've got some other vegetables, collard greens, lentils, broccolis, chickpeas, and only then we've got steak at 0.9 milligrams of iron per 100 calories. Okay, so really you're not getting as much iron as you think you are from your meat, and you can get tons more from plant sources. Okay, and then B12 is a complicated one. Now, the reason that I say so is because we can't deny it. So if a meat eater comes to me today and says, yeah, you're lacking in B12, I'm going to say, yes, my diet does lack in B12, but so does yours. Because of our farming methods today, unfortunately, every single person on this planet requires B12 supplements. And the reason for this is that B12 is a micronutrient. It's a small little nutrient that we need in our diets. It's a vitamin. B12 is actually formed by bacteria in the soil. And the only way that your meat eater consumes B12 is because the cow that the meat eater eats the grass that comes with the B12 from the soil. Okay, so follow me now, alright? You've got the bacteria in the soil giving life to the grass. The cow comes along to munch the grass. The cow then pulls the grass from the earth with soil still attached, and that's where the B12 sits. The cow munches that, takes it into its body. Human comes along, kills cow and eats cow, and therefore you get the B12 into your body. Problem comes in though, where your meat from Checkers, ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Woolworths no longer comes from a pasture somewhere. Your meat, standard practice, comes from a factory farm, where cows are kept in warehouses. They are fed a protein-based diet. 80% of the world's soy is actually fed to livestock. So cows are also being fed diets that are unnatural to them. They are fed soy and corn and all sorts of products that they're not supposed to be eating. But the point is that the cow no longer comes into contact with the earth. The cow no longer comes into contact with the B12. Therefore, the human that eats the cow does not come into contact with B12. So where are meat eaters getting the B12 from? Well, most of the world's B12 supplements, up to 90%, is consumed by farm animals. So the farmer now knows the cow's not getting the B12 from the earth. So the cow's diet must be supplemented with B12. So the majority, vast majority, 90% of all B12 supplements are not consumed by vegans, but are forced down the throats of livestock that meat eaters wish to consume. That's the only reason, the fake way, the false way, that a meat eater gets any B12 into his or her diet. Why not rather just take the piliki and drink it yourself? Why must you first filter it through the body of another living sentient being in order to consume it yourself? But now you ask, okay, well, why don't you vegans get B12? I mean, surely you're the ones that are eating from the earth, so why don't you get B12? Well, unfortunately, because of farming practices, we use pesticides and herbicides in our farming methods. And that little bacteria that I told you about that is in the soil that is responsible for the production of this B12, unfortunately, that bacteria dies. Okay, so if you start throwing pesticides and herbicides at plant matter, goes into the soil and unfortunately kills off the very bacteria that was supposed to create the B12 in the first place. So yes, as a vegan, I admit I lack B12, but so does every meat consumer. The only way the meat consumer gets it is by force-feeding pills to a cow instead of taking the pill him or herself. I'd rather just consume the pill myself. Then we need to look at vegan alternatives. So now you say to me, okay, I am a herbivore, I'm not the top of the food chain, I understand that this would actually be good for my health, I won't be lacking in any nutrients whatsoever, but now, what the hell am I supposed to eat? The nice thing is that there are vegan alternatives to pretty much everything. So we're not actually asking you to give up anything, we're just asking you to make substitutions. Alright, so instead of meat, you can go to Checkers or ShopRite or Pick n Pay and you can pick up a box of fries. And this you'll find in your local grocery store in one of the frozen food fridges, and you'll see all these green boxes. There are schnitzels, there are nuggets, there are strips, there's mince, there's pies, there's polony, anything that your heart could desire. There is a soya version, and no, it does not taste terrible. Remember that I'm trying to win you over to veganism. I'm not going to market products to you that I think taste terrible. Alright, so give fries a try. And if you don't like the idea of consuming soya, then you can give corn a try. Corn is a product made with mycoprotein. It doesn't use soy at all. However, you just have to be careful because there are vegetarian ranges of corn, not just vegan ranges. So you can see very clearly on the packaging there is a label that says vegan. So go for those corn products as well. And while we're on the meat subject, I'm just giving you these convenient, tasty options at the moment, fries and corn. But remember that at the end of the day, these products come from an original source as well, like beans, lentils, legumes, chickpeas. These are very high in protein, very low in fat, and also delicious, obviously, if you prepare them correctly. Okay, then we get to milk. There are tons of alternatives for milk. So yes, you get soy milk, but if you don't like soy, there's oat milk, there's quinoa milk, there's hemp milk, there's all sorts of nut milks. Eventually you'll find the milk that works for you. Some people don't like soy, but the benefit, can I add, of drinking one of these milks is the fact that they are fortified with vitamin B12. So cow's milk, which has exactly zero vitamin B12, is not going to help you at all. But these milks are fortified with vitamin B12, so if you're worried about, as a vegan, where am I going to get my B12, there you go, just drink one of these kinds of milk. Alright, then what about cheese? So one of the biggest reasons that people who are vegetarian never make the shift to veganism is the fact that they can't let go of cheese. But the good news is that we actually do have different kinds of cheese as vegan ranges as well. There's cheesely, for example, which I myself don't exactly enjoy. Some people like it. I can't say I'm one of them. Then there's tatamu, and tatamu is a cheese that is made out of nuts. Then if you're more into your creamy cheeses, there's cheese. And these are all available at your local supermarket, except tatamu is more by order. And BioLife recently imported into South Africa from Greece. And BioLife comes in all different flavors and slices or blocks. There's even a pizza variety that you can grate onto your homemade pizzas, put it in the oven, it actually melts, it's stringy just like normal cheese. But the problem is for me with BioLife is that it tastes so similar to dairy cheese that I actually can't eat it. So if you're looking to make the switch, then the best cheese out there, the cheesiest of vegan cheeses, is your BioLife cheese. Alright, and then obviously there is vegan biltong, there's vegan ice cream, there's vegan alles. Now I obviously don't have the time to go through all of these options with you today, but I would like to make you aware of this website. Go to www.vegansa.com and there you will see all these listings. So as a vegan, where do I go to have dinner? Click on this link and it will take you to a list of different restaurants that are available to you to go out and have a decent vegan meal. If you're worried about food, click on this link and then it will list everything for you. Biscuits, okay, what biscuits can I eat? Click on biscuits, it will tell you what biscuits you can eat and where to get these products from. Okay, so this is just a really nice resource. I'd just like to end off with one final word. Okay, now these are the words of Leonardo da Vinci, who said, "The time will come when men such as I will look upon the murder of animals as they now look on the murder of men." The time has come, people. The time is now.